A Sister for Christmas is the latest Maggie Hartley foster carer memoir. This was released yesterday, 7th of November 2024, and it's a short. It's a very short book. It's about a half-hour read, give or take. Not sure how many pages because I read the Kindle version. I don't think there is a paperback version. And it's okay. It's not bad. As a short read, I'm actually thankful it's a short read because there are some foster carer memoirs, not necessarily from Maggie Hartley, but there are some where they take a story that's definitely a short story and they pad it out to be a much longer 300-page book, and there was no need for that to be the case here. So I'm actually appreciative that it's short, and I enjoyed it well enough. Maggie is currently looking after a teenager, and then she also looks after a 4-month-old baby. And this baby definitely sounds adorable. She's awake all the night, but in general, she seems like a happy baby who hasn't yet been negatively affected by her upbringing. And that's potentially quite surprising because the baby's mother is a drug addict, she's an alcoholic, and neglects this child. So I actually think the child had quite a lucky escape from the sounds of it. And Jazmin, the baby's much older sister, visits her mother one day, realizes that there are just a bunch of people there completely out of their face on drugs, and the baby is neglected. So she takes the baby. The baby is called Pearl. I don't think I mentioned that gorgeous name. And the baby, Pearl, obviously ends up in Maggie Hartley's care, and Jazmin sees a lot of her sister, which I think was a really interesting setup there for them, because Maggie Hartley could care for the baby as a professional foster carer, but Jazmin was still able to see her. And I won't say what happens next because it is a short story. I don't want to give away what happens to Pearl, but it's a well-written story, and there's only one thing that I felt was lacking. Not in a way that ruined the experience, not at all, but I will, with a spoiler warning at the end, mention what that is. But I enjoyed it. It was well written. The grammar is good. The structure of the story is good. The descriptions of the characters, really great. Very vivid, easy to picture everything. No problems there. It's pretty tame. And I say this because there are some foster carer memoirs that are honestly so difficult to get through. The descriptions of abuse are horrendous. This one, obviously there is a bit of that, but it doesn't go into too much detail about that. So if you're not sure if you have the stomach for this kind of thing, because they're difficult reads. They're generally, or at least often, stories about abused and neglected children. This one's a bit more of an entry-level story, and of course it's short as well. So if you're new to foster carer memoirs, then it might be worth reading as a starting point. I will say there's not really anything in this that's Christmassy. It is in the run-up to Christmas, but there are no Christmas activities, Christmas decorating, anything like that. So if you're looking for a Christmas-themed story, this isn't it, but it is kind of in the run-up to Christmas, hence the title. And in general, I'd say it's worth reading. It's well written, it's short, it's to the point, and as I said, I really appreciate that, because there have been some, again, not necessarily from Maggie Hartley, where the stories really were spread thinly with a lot of padding, and it's nice to have a story where pretty much everything had a place and everything had a purpose, and I really like that. So, well written, good narrative. Obviously, it's based on truth. I don't know exactly how accurate it is to the true events, but it definitely seems like a very believable story. And whether you're new to Maggie Hartley or new to foster carers in general, or you're just wondering if this is worth a read, I'd say it's definitely worth it. I really enjoyed it. A pretty good way to spend half an hour. I will now mention very briefly the one thing that I felt lacking, and it is not a big deal, but it is a spoiler for something that happens at the end, and this is the last thing that I have to say. And this is the fact that I feel like I was left wanting to know more about Jazmin and Pearl's mother, just to kind of wrap that up a little bit more, because basically their mother didn't want Pearl anymore, so Pearl went up for adoption. And obviously there is more to it than that. You can't just take a baby to social services and say, here, that's not what happened, but you can't take a baby and just say, don't want them, take them, and they go, okay, we'll find a new family for the child. It's a much more lengthy process. So I would have liked a little bit more detail about that. Maybe Maggie didn't have that information, but I, as Pearl's foster carer, it's almost guaranteed that she would know a little bit about that. So I would have liked a bit more about that. But other than that, A Sister for Christmas, it's not a bad story. And if you're a foster care memoir fan, it's definitely worth reading.